Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us. My name is Camilo Puerto. I am Program and Project Manager from CCYK Association of an association of 30 Colombian higher education institutions of high quality that promote international education and in alliance with the U.S. Embassy. The Dr. Joey, we would like to thanks for your interest and participation in this workshop. In this first workshop of two common projects for connecting HBCUs and Colombian institutions for 2024. And I would like to introduce first to Rosalind Weiss. Rosalind Weiss is the Cultural Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Bogota, Colombia. A career foreign service officer, she most recently served as the Deputy Principal Officer and Consular Section Chief at the U.S. Consulate General in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. In previous overseas posting, Ms. Weiss served as the Director of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs at the U.S. Embassy in Abuja, Nigeria, INL Counter Narcotics Program Officer in Kabul, Afghanistan, Immigrant Visa Unit Chief in Salvador, El Salvador, and Deputy Fraud Prevention Chief in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Ms. Weiss has also previously served in Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. In Washington, Ms. Weiss served as the Adoption Branch Chief in the Bureau of Consular Affairs Office of Children's Issues and the Congressional Liaison Officer to the Senate of the Bureau of Consular Affairs. Ms. Weiss hails from the state of Florida and holds a master's degree from George Washington University and a bachelor's degree from Barry University. She speaks Spanish and some Portuguese. Ms. Weiss is married with 3 children. And Rosalind, thank you very much for all your leadership in this. And please go ahead.
Thank you, Camilo. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you today to open the session for representatives of historically Black colleges and universities as part of our Bridges project. My name is Rosalind Weiss, and I am the Public Diplomacy Officer in the U.S. Embassy in Bogota. Our office manages the U.S. Embassy's bilateral higher education initiatives that promote academic mobility and internationalization. Our goal is to promote international exchanges and partnership building between the U.S. and Colombian higher education institutions. One of our highest priorities is promoting more engagement between HBCUs and Colombian institutions, with a special focus on those that serve traditionally marginalized communities that include Afro-Colombian students. HBCUs are a source of great pride for the U.S., and we want to help showcase the amazing academic and cultural opportunities that HBCUs can offer international students. In 2019, the U.S. Department of Education signed a memorandum of understanding with the Colombian Minister of Education that aims to promote cultural and educational exchange opportunities among the HBCUs and the higher education institutions here in Colombia. We've designed several initiatives to help implement this MOU, and today during this session, you will learn about one of the projects through which we are looking to help create new academic, scientific, and cultural and exchange opportunities. The Bridges project is funded by the Public Diplomacy section of the U.S. Embassy here in Bogota, and it is implemented by the Colombian Association of Accredited Higher Education Institutions, Columbia Challenge Your Knowledge, which is a key local partner that helps us reach higher education institutions throughout Colombia. It's important to note that government resources alone are insufficient to address all of the challenges to equal access and inclusive education in Colombia. We need to work with leaders in academia, business, and foundations to create more access to new models of academic exchange and training programs for student and faculty. And much of this is also true for the United States. We hope to be able to provide institutions in Colombia with the tools and resources to be able to do this. I truly appreciate your interest and the interest of your institutions to strengthen relations with Colombia. As part of my responsibilities, I often interact with colleges from Colombian higher education institutions, and I've seen an increasing interest in learning more and partnering with HBCUs from the U.S. The U.S. Embassy in Colombia will also support the HBCU Summit. It's the first of its kind in cooperation with CCYK and our colleagues from the Government of Colombia, including the Ministry of Education and ICETEX. The summit that will take place from August 15th to 17th in Cali will bring together colleagues from the U.S. and Colombia to connect on specific fields of interest and develop programs for Afro-descendant students in both countries. These workshops are our first preparation activity for the summit. So today, and we will also have a session tomorrow for Colombian institutions, and we will talk more about the summit that we will be extending an invitation to all of you to attend from August 15th through 17th. Our programs are meant to create mutual understanding and cultivate people-to-people connections to build solid and long-standing networks and relationships. I would like to encourage you to take this opportunity and get involved in new projects with Columbia. Finally, I would like to thank one of our speakers, Dr. Jewel Nguyen, who has collaborated with us on several projects. And also I would like to thank our colleagues from CCYK who are leading this project and this workshop today. Thank you all for joining us and for sharing your experiences and helping us facilitate this process. I hope everyone has a productive session and enjoys the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosaline. So I'm going to introduce Giovanni Anzola. He is PhD in Development Studies, Master in Education, Specialist in University Teaching, and Bachelor of Education, Spanish and English, with studies in Project Management, Management of Financial Resources, and University Leadership at the University of Oldenburg from Germany, a scholarship of the UniLead program of the DAAD, scholarships of the U.S. Department of State Education University Leadership Institutes. He currently works as Director of Internationalization and External Relations of the Universidad Externado de Colombia. He has served as Executive Secretary of the International Association of La Salle Universities, ESOL Examiner of Cambridge University, and as a Secretary General of the Colombian region of the Inter-American Organization for Higher Education. He currently chairs the CCYK Accredited Universities Network and is the President of the French Studies Corporation in Colombia. Thank you, Giovanni.
Well, thank you very much, Camilo. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants and honored guests, welcome to the virtual workshop on building bridges with institutions of higher education in Colombia and the United States, with a special focus on historically Black colleges and universities. I'm thrilled to address this distinguished gathering today. As we embark on this collaborative journey, let us reflect on the words of the great civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, who championed diversity, inclusion, and equality, three words that are the purposes of this work. And Dr. King said, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And I believe these profound words remind us that unity, compassion, and understanding are essential for progress. As we bridge the gap between our nations, I believe that we can actually use higher education to promote collaborations between people and getting people together by means of cultural approaches, by means of educational approaches, can actually have a profound impact on the mission that we have at the different higher education institutions in Colombia and in the United States. So with these words, I would like to particularly thank the people at the U.S. Embassy, to Rosalind Weiss, to Diana Patiño, who believe in one initiative, that is to actually see how is it that we can understand better the type of collaborations that we can nurture between our two nations. And it was them, the ones who actually called this group of universities in Colombia under the name of CCYK. Later on, I'm going to explain a little bit about that. But I wanted to highlight that in particular, and call the attention on the spirit for this venture that we're having through this workshop. I don't think that, I think I'm going to have more words to share later on. So thank you very much once again for being here today. Thank you very much for your time, and let us have a beautiful workshop throughout the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you very much. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Ichie Win. She's Senior International Officer from Tennessee State University. Dr. Jewel Wynn has over 30 years of experience in higher education and serves Tennessee State University as Senior International Officer, Deputy Chief Diversity Officer, and Assistant Professor in Educational Administration. She provides leadership for the Office of Diversity and International Affairs. Dr. Wynn holds a Doctorate of Education degree, Masters of Public Administration degree, and Bachelor of Business Administration degree. She is a member of several civic and social organizations and has executed various community and university initiatives requiring extensive research in diversity and international issues, as well as policy implementation.
Well, good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share with my colleagues across the Academy in Colombia as well as the United States. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to come together and identify any gaps that exist between our countries and our higher ed institutions and figure out a way collaboratively of how we can enhance opportunities for our students and our faculty at our institutions. I have had the opportunity to be involved with the embassy as Deanna and Roslyn have helped us to have these opportunities for several years. We worked with the Colombo Americano, a binational center in Medellin, as well as the embassy starting as far back as 2015 and traveling all over Colombia to connect with various institutions there. And we realized that there were a lot of similarities in our institutions as far as the goals that we were trying to achieve for our African-American students, our Indigenous students, and any student who was interested in traveling to the U.S. and for our students in the U.S. for traveling to Colombia. Colombia was an easy destination for us. It didn't take a long time. There were so many cultural similarities that the students were excited about coming to Colombia. And I am just looking forward to all of the opportunities that will come from this workshop today and tomorrow, as well as what we plan to do in Cali in August. Our students are still talking about their experiences in Colombia, and oftentimes ask, when are we going back? Our president herself has said, we haven't done a lot in Colombia lately. What's going on? So this is a perfect opportunity for us to revisit what we can do together. And I'm just looking forward to a great conversation. We will teach and learn together, I think, over the next 2 days. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share today.
Thank you, Dr. Wynn. So we are going to present you the agenda that we have today. We have the higher education landscape in Colombia. The idea is to know more about challenges, opportunities, and why partnering with Colombia is important for institutions in both countries. In the flow, we will have a briefing on Colombian higher education system. There's some information, some general information about the higher education system in Colombia and a website of the Ministry of Education that offers to more information. The next session is financial aid to HBCU summits. It's going to be held with the U.S. Embassy. We will have a break of 15 minutes, and we are going to finish with two spaces. One is the overview of past and current programs that facilitate international partnership with Colombian higher education institutions. Some experiences that we will that some Colombian higher education institutions will share with you in the experience of initiatives and common projects with U.S. institutions. Next, we are going to have a panel discussion with a group of diverse Colombian higher education institutions moderated by Dr. Wynn. And last, we will have the closing remarks. So Diana, I'm going to invite Diana Patiño from the U.S. Embassy and Giovanni to this next session.
Thank you, Camilo. Thank you very much. My name is Diana Patiño, and I'm the higher education specialist here at the U.S. Embassy. I work with Rosalind Luis. And so I have been working for over 10 years in the higher education relations, helping institutions build relations, build partnerships with American institutions. And also lately we have been working more with American institutions, help them connect with Colombia. So thank you very much for Camilo and Dr. Wynn for this session. I will have a conversation with Giovanni Anzola. He's an expert. He has a long experience here in Colombia. We have had great work with different programs from the embassy, and we have seen a big increase in the interest and in the number of institutions from the US and Colombia joining our initiatives, our programs. So, Giovanni, I would like to ask you, first of all, if you can share with us something about I understand you did a report, an inbound report on the academic mobility from students from the US to Colombia. I would like you to share, if you can, some information about it, as we always speak about Colombians going to the US, but I understand you found great information also in the other way around. Could you please share something about it?
Okay, so well, let me start by telling you the story about, or the history of CCYK. So actually more than 14 years ago, a group of universities decided to get together to promote Colombia internationally. And that was because, you know, Colombia has had a very bad image internationally speaking when it comes to the internal conflict of the country. And unfortunately, that was affecting the development of our universities regarding research or regarding academic development. And so we decided the first 11 high quality accredited universities, that is also something important to mention later on. But the intention was to actually see how is it that we could give our own story about what it was happening in the country back in those days. So with this background, we decided to start participating in international conferences and actually trying to have an approach to invite people to come to Colombia under the understanding that it is only through international collaboration that countries can actually come out from times of uncertainty. And so that was the spirit of these universities. And also because, in connecting to Diana's question, because, you know, like there is this dot report where Colombia has, well, had different travel warnings for people to come and you know, like with really terrible stories. So we decided to, you know, like do our own research report, and we started asking all those international students coming from the United States and see their perception about the country, and actually understanding what was it that we had to do to change that really bad image of that Colombia had for several years. So we launched this survey with universities in Colombia and with international students from the United States coming to the country, where we asked them about, you know, like very terrible things that were said about Colombia internationally speaking, you know, like things related to drug trafficking, things related to, you know, like homicide rates, things related to kidnapping, you know, like we wanted to really face the problem, you know, like by asking directly the students about this. So in a window of 5 years, well, this report, you can find it very easily, which is called the inbound report of US students to Colombia. We asked them about these things, their perception regarding kidnapping, regarding, you know, like drug trafficking and all these things that I just mentioned. And we have about more than 1,900 students who reported on the perceptions about the country. And you'll find very interesting results. So back in those days, I'm talking that report, we finished the report back in 2015. The homicide rates that Colombia has over 100,000 inhabitants, Colombia had 25 people, like killed under this portion. So 100,000, 25 people were killed, that was the ratio. And we started comparing these numbers with certain cities, like in the United States. We found that there were cities with homicide rate of 65 of 50 people per 100,000 inhabitants. But the perception about Colombia is really bad. It was worse. So that's why we decided to see how is it that we could change that image, because we still had some trouble. We still had some problems. The negotiations with the guerrillas were happening back, were coming to an end back in those days. So that report actually helped us with a different perception. So a different perception about out of those 1,900 students that I told you about. So we had 0 killings back in those days, like talking about international students in particular. We had 0 people having problems with kidnapping, 0 people having problems with, like really terrible things that typically happens and that are reported when it comes to the vulnerability of international students when they go abroad. We did have some problems with some students that were, where their belongings were, were stolen, like they abandoned their cameras and they were taken. But those were the type of issues that students reported. And that's why it's very important to give you our version of the story. And that was one of the ideas that started changing the perception about many countries when thinking about Colombia. Well, maybe I extended too much, Diana, but just to warm up a little bit the session. And did I answer your question? I think so, right?
Thank you. Yes, Giovanni, thank you. Actually, you started answering my next question, because my next question was, well, you did this report, you have this, experience working with or dealing with issues. So my next question was, which do you think are the main opportunities now after all this process, after you have seen how the relations have improved, how those, let's say, misperceptions have been clarified? Which do you think are the opportunities and the main challenges to connect with Colombia? If you were an American university like we have today, HBCU representatives, which have been the main opportunities and challenges you have seen?
Well, I believe that our culture, when it comes to the higher education institutions, collaborating with international partners, is different from the mindset that a lot of people may have in the United States. Let me explain that. Typically, our internationalization models or strategies are based on cooperation. And the model of cooperation that we have had typically is by means of asking institutions to transfer knowledge or to transfer aid or to give us resources to have a better institutional development. And in the United States, the model is a little bit more what we have learned when we come to these international conferences. And sorry, before going to what we've understood from the international model, in Colombian higher education institutions would be looking all the time to have memoranda of understanding and collaboration agreements for the mobility of students. Typically, you would find that Colombian universities would start by seeing if there's a possibility to sign up an agreement and to have the exchange of students. Well, that's one of the main challenges with universities in the United States. because there are a lot of Colombian students interested in going to the United States. And because of many things, culturally speaking, historically speaking, students in the United States would not see Colombia as a destination for their learning experience. And that's one of the things we need to face in the sense of how is it that we can actually invite more students from the United States to come to Colombia. The second thing, of course, is related to changing the mindset of Colombian universities, and also changing the mindset of colleagues in the United States when thinking about international partnering. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about having education as an experience for the students. And if we're talking about a global understanding, it's very important for the students to go into the culture, go into the context, understand the different difficulties that the different peoples are having. And in that sense, I believe that we can work on that. The third challenge that I see, and I believe this is also for students in the United States, is the financial issue. How is it that we can, for a Colombian to go to study to the United States, if we compare the dollar and the Colombian peso, difference, the cost of living in Colombia is very low, which is an opportunity for students in the United States. But for the Colombian students going to the States, it's going to be tremendously high. So that's something that we have to work on and see how is it that we can actually have a balance or have an exchange when it comes to the financial support for the students when participating in these different initiatives. These are like the things that I have in mind at the moment, but there would be like three levels. The first level is how is it that at the institutional level, we prioritize collaborations between Colombia and the United States. At the next level, how is it that we understand our mindset can change to have better collaborations, not only for the exchange of students, but maybe by means of research or by means of development projects between the institutions. So that is something that we have to work on. And of course, at the third level, without saying that's the least important, at the third level is how is that we can help the students to get to know better the country they could travel to and their financial issue. Those would be like the three things that I would have in mind at the moment.
Thank you, Giovanni. I would also like to invite Dr. Wynn that would like to also give us share some input. Thank you, Dr. Wynn.
Thank you, Deanna. This is actually for Giovanni, and I thank you for sharing the information about CCYK hoping to improve the image of Colombia. But one thing that happened since the 2015 report was in the United States, the Black Lives Matter movement evolved, and it was very, very important for especially our African American students on our campuses to feel safe. And they experienced a lot. It was very emotional for African Americans during the I feel like we're still in the Black Lives Matter movement, but the crime, we all experience crime in our countries and we all get the travel warnings and things like that. But what is not addressed enough, in my opinion, as an academic, is the safety and security emotionally for our students, right? So here in the United States, our students still face systemic racism, discrimination, and all types of societal ills are against them. And what we don't want to do, or what we attempt to do, is to prepare our students for the cultural experience that they are going to have when they go into another country. And as I stated during my opening remarks, there are so many similarities there in Colombia to the United States, but my question is, has CCYK collectively discussed the challenges that our Black and Brown students will face when they come to Columbia relative to racism and discrimination?
Wow, what a question. Thank you, Dr. Wynn. Well, Colombia has about 50 million inhabitants, and 10 million belong to Afro-descendants type of population. And in Colombia, we've been through different challenges when it comes to this type of movements, not only for Afro-descendants people, but for indigenous people, and also for women. You know, like those are the type of conflicts that many societies are facing nowadays. But I can tell, or I can say from my point of view, that many universities that belong to CCYK have particular projects or work closely with representative groupings of students or faculty who stand up for Afro-descendants' rights or for human rights, or you know, like certain populations, vulnerable populations. So I think that Colombia may have some problems when it comes to talking about racist situations or something like that, but that is not an issue that it could be like strongly highlighted. Most of the population, Afro-descendants population, are in the Pacific region of Colombia, and you'll find a lot of university campuses where, of course, there is a huge representation of Afro-descendants. And for us, I don't know, I want to be very respectful because I cannot speak for the entire country, but I believe that most of the universities fully respect the diversity of people. And like I was saying before, and maybe let me use the case of Externado University. This is a university based in the downtown of Bogota, and we have a representation of more than 30 indigenous communities that have scholarships to study at the university coming from the entire territory of Colombia. And also we have a group of students who belong to Afro-descendants, you know, who have Afro roots. And so for me, that you know, like these type of issues, they might be present, but it's not as strong as it happens in other parts of the world. I don't know if Dr. Wynn, if that may contribute a little bit to the understanding on how the situation is for Afro-descendant population in the country, in Colombia.
Well, let me back up just a little bit. So as you were talking about changing the image, you know, you were talking about the efforts that have been put forth in changing the image. And that was great. I just wanted to bring to your attention how much that the African-American student, higher education student in the US is facing here in America. This is America, supposedly the land of the free, right? And our students are still being mistreated. Our African-American males are being killed in the streets. It's horrible, right? So if our students come to the US, come to Columbia, which is what we're trying to do, we're trying to have, you know, a reciprocal type of relationship. And thinking about branding and thinking about messaging and marketing, it would be really good for our HBCUs to see that our campuses there in Colombia are welcoming, they are inclusive, they are, because you've already spoken to the safety aspect, so that's really, really good. But for me, for example, when I am helping students to understand their destinations, I want to send them to places where there is some relevancy, that they feel like there's a connection. And I found that in Colombia. I found that for our students, and our students who have been there before love it. And I want that to be known by all HBCUs. The great experience they're going to have when they come to Columbia, because we never had a bad experience. So I think since you have a captive audience of HBCUs on here, the ones that have not had a relationship with universities there in Columbia, they need to know that, yeah, we're going to face things and challenges when we go, but Columbia is so welcoming and their arms are wide open to receive any student, regardless of their background, not just race, but gender is a big issue here in the United States. So I think we're going to get into more conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But since you were talking about CCYK as a whole, I just want that to stay on the minds of those who will be helping to facilitate these exchanges, that it is very important for our students and for those of us who are leading our offices to know that it's really going to be okay when you come to Columbia. I mean, Jewel Wynn can talk about it all day, but if that experience is not real for them when they come, they're going to talk and say, we don't ever want to go back to Columbia because we're treated worse in Columbia than we're treated here in the United States. That is very, very important. The mental well-being of our students right now, because of what they're going through in the United States, they don't need to travel outside of the United States and get treated worse. So it's that sense of belonging that I'm trying to get to. That's just what I want to make sure we keep at the top of this conversation, is the sense of belonging for students on both sides. And lastly, of course, there's a language barrier, right? So when our students come, a lot of them may not know Spanish. That did not prevent anything from happening when we came. Those kids found a way to connect with each other, and they didn't speak each other's language, but for some reason, these young folks know how to connect. They get on their phones and they use their Google Translate and all of that, and they connect. So again, as we talk about it more over the next few days, I do want us all to remember that it is about the student and that student profile, that student demographic that we have to make sure is addressed and kept in mind as we're planning for to receive these students on both ends. And thank you so much for sharing that report. That was very, very important.
Thank you very much to both of you. I think this conversation is great. I would like to highlight that from the embassy, as I was saying, we have several programs in which we have been inviting institutions to design projects and propose projects to the embassy to be financed. One of the initiatives, big, powerful initiatives here in Colombia, is 100,000 Strong in the Americas, in which Colombia is the top country with more projects financed through this fund. And I would like to say that several HBCUs, HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions, HBCUs have applied and they have received the funding, and they have been very successful, is what Dr. Wynn was mentioning before. We have been very happy and proud to see this happening, because these projects have, let's say, paved the way to have more projects coming, to have more institutions interested in partnering with Colombia. So thank you, both of you, for sharing your experience. I would like to close this conversation with a question. In your experience, and probably Dr. Wynn can also help, since you have experience also with several programs in Colombia, and Giovanni, of course, for you too. In your experience, what you have seen, also, well, you know, in Colombia, sorry, I should have mentioned this before. Unfortunately, we don't have someone from the Ministry of Education today here in the conversation, but in Colombia, also regulations make institutions, well, also regulations invite institutions to be more inclusive through all the regulations they have. Through the government of Colombia, with all the regulations they have, they invite institutions and they ask institutions to be accountable on that inclusion within their institutions. So my question would be, in your experience on those projects between Colombia and the US, we have seen not only students from Colombia going to the US, but more students from the US coming to Colombia. So do you think that, because also we have always had some type of travel warning. So in your experience, do you think these projects have become more than the single project once they finish? Because we have seen short projects, but we have seen some of them evolve. So in your experience, do you think they could evolve, and how have you seen evolve those projects that you have been in?
So do you want me to go first? Or is
Please,
that for Giovanni?
please, Dr. Wynn.
Okay, so for us, again, the travel warnings, I mean, I don't know of a country that doesn't really have a travel warning that we've been going to. So not to minimize the travel warning because they are important, but I think the relationship building that has taken place over the years, specifically for Tennessee State University, has been helpful. I was approached by, I think it was our legal counsel or something like that, that asked me about a travel warning a few years ago when we were doing something there in Colombia. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's a travel warning, but it's not to the extent for us to be concerned that we should not travel. We have not seen a travel warning that says don't travel to Colombia. They're just there's just information about different regions and things like that. But we do safety protocols for wherever we go. I think the pre-departure orientations are very important for us as we're preparing our students to go. So that has not, for Tennessee State University, prevented us from coming to Columbia. And as I was saying, our president loved what she saw with all of the exchange programs that we did with Colombia. Also having that third party involved, the Colombo Americano, was very critical. Again, it was about relationship building. It's establishing those relationships with people there on the ground in Colombia to help us navigate any challenges that may come up. Every university, the embassy, the binational centers, anyone that we worked with have just been amazing and have helped us pre-departure as well as when we're there on the ground and when we return back to our institutions. So we have seen more for Tennessee State University, we've seen more projects develop over time. They have not diminished, and we want more. We want to do more because Colombia is so big and it's such a diverse country, from Bogota all the way down to where we've done so much in Cartagena and just everywhere, all over the country, there are opportunities. And because it's such a diverse country, we can find some type of or some area for collaboration. What we've also seen, Deanna, is the research that's coming from our work with some of the institutions. And that's very important because I'm a faculty member as well. So that's very important for us in higher ed to find ways to collaborate on research. So our faculty are coming together and finding projects that can be worked upon as capstone projects. So the students will work on projects at their institutions. And then when they come together in Colombia, that project in Colombia is their capstone project. So they get real world experience there on the ground in Colombia. And that has been very meaningful. And I think that's what has caused some of our students to want to come back or to even come to Colombia to actually live as an expat. So again, these next 2 days are going to be very critical for us to talk about the many opportunities for both of our countries. But coming to Colombia for Tennessee State University has not been an issue. It has actually grown. The interest is there, and we have no problem promoting Colombia on our end as far as Tennessee State University.
Thank you, Giovanni.
Well, I believe that what we can offer to students when thinking about coming to Colombia, it's the energy that we all higher education institutions have when it comes to having young people integrated into problem solving. And connecting to Dr. Wynn's idea, I believe that's one of the things that Colombian higher education institutions have very clear with the participation of students coming from the United States to our country. So there is one important thing to see: how is it that we can do this type of collaborating activities or projects or capstone projects? Because at the end of the day, it's the experience that international students can have, that one way we can offer to the students coming from the United States. And something very important to say, for instance, if a student from the United States wants to come to Colombia for less than 180 days, they don't need a visa. That actually helps a lot. So these are the type of policies that the country, is having to actually promote the country for people to come to the different higher education institutions. So that's a way to say that regulations are in favor of these type of collaborations. And also I wanted to mention that higher education institutions also have very interesting extracurricular activities for students, not only to have an academic approach on their stay, but also that cultural approach, which is the one I believe that we've been talking throughout the morning. And so, well, yes, and I really like what Dr. Wins said about, like the ways we can actually help the students have a better understanding and having more dialogues and having more connections with people. And I'm glad to hear that with the past of the years, more and more higher education institutions in the United States see Colombia as a priority for different types of collaborations, including research and other projects.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to both of you for sharing your experience. And well, Camilo, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak about the landscape in Colombia.
Okay, I think we are now prepared to go into the briefing on Colombian higher education system. Is that where we are, Camilo?
Yes, Dr. Wynn, thank you very much. I'm going to introduce shortly this kind of tool that the Ministry of Education has created with the Colombian Association of Universities some years ago. I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to share the link for you to know more about this tool, this interactive tool here. Is in both languages, in Spanish and in English, and is like a guides that the Ministry of Education built some years ago to know more about the higher education systems around the world, including the Colombian higher education system. So the idea is that you can know more about the dynamics, the nature of Colombia in the higher education. You can find here all a brief look at initial, basic, and secondary education in Colombia. Some of the main information of this official test that the government do with this primary and secondary level, and you can find more information here in the guides. So in the topics of the higher education system, you can know more about in this comparison of the Colombian education with ISCD from 2011 to 2013, based on UNESCO dates. And you can find the information of the professional technician, technologist, technical specialization, university professional, and the years of the careers, university specialization, and medical and surgical specialization. So the idea is to know more about that. In next activities on the project, we are going to have the participation of the Ministry of Education share this kind of information and answering questions, but we would like to know that we would like to share with all the HBCU representatives here this tool. This is the higher education institutions in Colombia units, where you can find information about the history and the legal issues of the dynamics and the scopes of this kind of higher education institutions, the legality of higher education programs and institutions that is a little bit diverse from the USA, and we can find more information of interest here in Colombia who for the people that would like to travel to Colombia with academic interests. So also we are going to find an important aspect is that the quality assurance of higher education in Colombia that is led by the Ministry of Education and the National Council of Quality here in Colombia. This is the academic programs of higher education that must have qualified registration with the authorization of the ministry so that such programs can be offered and developed. The general process that are part of the quality assurance system and general processes that are part of the quality assurance system of higher education in Colombia. So this is you can find this in the website that we shared. The aspects to be considered for the process of recognition of higher education degrees obtained abroad. That is important for the Colombian students that are studying or are taking courses in USA, and when they would like to return to Colombia, what they do have to do with the current recognition of these credits and these courses and programs. And you can find more here in the general aspects of this website. So you are going to the idea is you can know more about in the next activities for the higher education system, but this is the main tool that we can use for your questions regarding these kind of things.
I don't know if there are any questions coming from the audience, different from Dr. Nguyen, maybe that we can help with.
Yeah, hello, this is Godlove Funjoin from Prairie View A&M University in Texas.
Professor, hello.
Hello, yeah, this is really very informative. I'm very thankful that I'm part of this. Joel, I really like your perspective and the perspective of others. Giovanni, you've really opened my eyes to a lot of things and perspectives, and it's really good. And the quick thing I wanted to ask Joel, just listening to you as I think about the kinds of things that we can do, having students do projects is one of those ways in which I believe students can really enhance their cultural competencies, which is basically the larger goal here. Going to another country, sitting in a classroom and learning, okay, yes, you learn stuff, but when you're doing hands-on stuff and interacting with people, you're having side conversations, the things you learn from chatting with those people and learning how things are done in that country, they're just so important. And that is why I'm looking at internships more and more abroad and that kind of thing. But the thing I really wanted to ask you is the possibility of having a side conversation with you about some ways in which maybe I can have you talk to my faculty about some of your experiences in Colombia. We've had a couple of faculty members that have done some things there, but I think that number could increase. So faculty can have all the ideas of potential projects, but it takes somebody who knows how to help make the connection. Say, okay, if this is the kind of thing, the kind of projects that your students are interested in, here are some places that you can connect with. So conversation around that. So just it's really not a question. It's a question in a way that I don't know if that is something that you're open to. Maybe we have some opportunity for you to talk to some people who may be interested about that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea, because I'm constantly thinking of different ways to, I guess, recruit our students, because this generation of students, they're a little bit different from the students that were there in 2015. Not a big difference, but the technology has changed the game for study abroad and exchange. AI is taking over. And I think instead of us fearing technology, we need to embrace the technology and find a way to get our students excited about the technology. It's going to actually help even bridge more, or to help bridge more whatever divides that existed, whether it was language or culture. And one of the biggest things for me, even though I am an academic, was to see the cultural exchange. When those students heard the music, it didn't matter if they understood what the words they were saying. It was the beat and the music that brought them together. So to see them dance and enjoy each other meant the world to them. And they have lifelong friends now. And they actually, some of our students actually travel to Colombia on vacation to be with their peers that they met during that time. So again, the possibilities are limitless. It's that we have to open up our minds and listen to the students and let them tell us what they would like to experience instead of us always coming up with the project, right? So I believe in student voice and student agency, and I bring my students around the table and say, what would you like to experience when you go to Colombia? Because this is what I experienced as an adult, as your faculty member, as your leader of international affairs. But based on what I've told you, what would you like to experience? And then we take those experiences and then I share with the faculty members there. I see AFED is on the call. We've worked with just so many universities. I don't want to start calling because I'll leave somebody out. But sir, yes, let's have a sidebar conversation and we could even go together as a group, Prairie View and TSU, we could do a thing together and go to Colombia. So yes, I agree. Let's have a side conversation.
And I like that second part you added as well. And I would just say that I've been to Colombia before. When I went there, I was already a faculty member. But I went there for a conference and I was acting like one of those students you're talking about, even though I was a faculty member. I was born in Cameroon. When I heard the music, I just felt like I was back in Cameroon, and it was just something that I can never forget. Of course, talking about soccer, and everybody in Colombia knows Cameroon because of the soccer game between Cameroon and Colombia way back when. But my other question is to Rosalind. We talked about travel warnings. I know the State Department is a big, humongous thing, but here's the thing about travel warnings. I think that there's an educational process that is needed, not just for people abroad, but for Americans, because when you see a travel warning, say, okay, Colombia is level 3 or 4, it doesn't mean that the whole country is that way. It's because they saw something in one region, and Americans don't fully understand that. I'm not trying to put Rosalind on the spot here, of course, because I'm sure that this is something that is done in some other areas of the department. But there are ways to kind of educate Americans, because those warnings are designed for Americans traveling abroad. It's a way to really help them understand what travel warnings mean. Because the less the American public understands that, the more complicated our jobs are, because the people that we report to, they worry about having an incident abroad and somebody saying, oh, look, it was level 3, and you still took students there. But if there is an understanding that you read this by regions of the country, and then for your safety plan, you discuss how you're going to navigate around those regions, and that beyond that, there are no potential challenges for you. So some conversation around that. So it's not really a question, but just saying that, really, that I think here there is an educational process from this end, from the US end, and we need to figure out how to do that, all of us, not just one person. I know I mentioned your name, Rosalind, but this is not on you at all. So that's my point.
Thank you, Goodlove. I really appreciate that. And my audio is a little off, so I couldn't hear everything that you said, but I think when it comes to the travel warnings, it's something that the Department of State kind of struggles with in every country, right? We have travel warnings in every single country in the Western Hemisphere, but also on the other side of the Atlantic, where we know that it's a country that it's safe to travel to. We know that there is, we promote travel to and from those countries, yet we have pockets of areas where in order for us to ensure that we aren't putting Americans in a situation that could be precarious or dangerous, we do have to outline that there are certain areas where they really shouldn't travel. And I think with Colombia in particular, the large majority of the country that we want Americans to explore, not just academically, but culturally, looking at Colombia's biodiversity. There's just so much that Colombia can offer. And it can be done if the travel warnings or the travel advisories are heeded. And so as the US government, we have a responsibility. Our top priority above everything else, I know it may sound like counter narcotics, it may sound like promoting economic development, but our actual top priority is protecting American citizens. And that's why those advisories are worded the way that they are. And they're very, very specific. If you look at the one for Colombia, it outlines the areas where we do not encourage American citizens to travel. And outside of those spaces, we're very, very confident that American students, American tourists can come to Colombia and truly enjoy their experience. And so I know that that's not a great response because, it's caveated with there are these pockets of spaces, but we think there's so much to offer here in Colombia. I travel throughout Colombia regularly, all the time, visiting multiple cities and have not had any issues. You practice your average kind of personal safety that you would practice in any city in the United States. I'm from Florida, and there, Miami can be a rough neighborhood sometimes, and so. So I would say that, I take care of my cell phone and my wallet and all of the things that I need to take care of in Miami the same way that I do in Colombia. So as much as I would like to change the wording in our travel advisories, there is a standard template that they have to maintain, and there's nothing we can do specifically about Colombia's, but I think the overall kind of guidance that we offer from the U.S. Embassy is to make sure that personal security and personal safety is a priority when traveling here, as you would any other place. And we're happy to share more information on that. One of the things that we'll try to make sure we offer is maybe more expanded information on security and travel to Colombia during the HBCU summit. That's something we can definitely focus on, so to give participants an opportunity to ask more questions and put it in the context of the academic exchanges. So I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay, are we, where are we now, Camilla, on the agenda?
Okay, Dr. Wynn, thank you. We are going to go to the next session, that is the financial aid to HBCU summits with the U.S. Embassy.
Thank you, Camilo. Thank you very much. Well, I will quickly speak about the summit and about what we are planning. So you are informed, and we really expect you to apply and to participate. So If that's okay, I would like to share my screen. Camilo, could you please confirm if you're
Yes.
watching my screen? Okay, thank you. Well, we have referred several times about the HBCU summit, and I think it is important also to clarify that we have been working a lot trying to bring together representatives from HBCUs to Colombia. We have done several events, several meetings. We have hosted several events of HBCU representatives here in Colombia. We started with an event that happened in Medellin. Then we did another in Nashville, also with support from Dr. Wynn in Tennessee State University. We have done several events. However, this time we are organizing a true summit in which we are gonna invite, we hope, a large group of representatives. So our idea is to bring together the same number of representatives from the US and from Colombia. So that's a big effort from the embassy and also from our local partners to create an event, create an opportunity for our colleagues to come together, have the opportunity to develop new programs, and also to speak on specific topics. So the dates for the summit are August 15th to 17th. It's gonna be hosted in Cali, Valle. So Cali is the Colombian city with the majority of Afro-Colombian descendants. So so we have several higher education institutions there. We work very closely with many institutions in Cali. But we also I want to mention that during the same week, we will have another event in Colombia. It's a very important event that is called LACHEC. It's the Latin American and the Caribbean Higher Education Conference. Our colleagues from CCYK are part of the organizers of that conference, and the conference is gonna take the same week until the 15th. Actually, it's gonna be hosted in Bogota. So we want to invite you, consider the possibility to come to Colombia for the whole week and join LACHEC in Bogota, and then go to Cali and attend the summit, the HBCU summit. So as I was saying, the location is in Cali. Valle is in the south side of Colombia. We expect to have approximately 80 representatives from HBCUs and Colombian, which means approximately 40 representatives from the US and 40 from Colombia. And we'll also have representatives from the US Department of State, of course, from Embassy, USAID, and several agencies from the government of Colombia, including ICETEX. I know if some of you might have heard of ICETEX, is the Colombian agency in charge of educational loans and also in charge of promoting opportunities for internationalization of Colombian institutions. Also SENA, which is the largest technical vocational institution in Colombia. It's a public institution. And also the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. So we have several partners. Also, we have seen interest from the Colombian embassy in the US. They have also been involved in these efforts. So we hope they can also apply. They can also attend. So through the summit, we have planned that we would like to have you come, and we know sometimes it's difficult to get financial support to attend these events. So we want to share with you that we'll have a model of financial support to attend the summit. So in this way, you can also find better ways to probably not only attend with one representative, but with more than one representative. So from the embassy, we are planning to offer financial support, and I want to go to the next one. So we will be offering accommodation in Cali from August 14th to August 18th. And also there is another big event in Cali during that time, is the music festival Petronio Alvarez. It's a very famous music festival of music from the Pacific. So we would also like to invite you to come and join and have not only the academic experience, but also the cultural experience, and probably participate in the music festival. The music festival actually starts earlier, but they closed on August 18. So if you are in Colombia, and especially in Cali, you will also get the chance to see what is happening in the festival. So going back to the financial support, we want to offer accommodation in Cali from August 14th to 18th. Also meals included through the event, transportation locally for the summer activities, and also airport transfer, of course, included, and participation in the summit. This will be the items we will be able to support. However, if you want to join the summit, you will need to pay or find the funding to pay for your airfare to come to Colombia. Of course, we can help providing information about flights, about how to get to Colombia, like which flights are better, but you will need to pay for the airfare. Important, this opportunity of financial support will be offered through a call for applications. So you will receive more information about this when you receive the official information of the summit. There will be a link through which you can apply, and of course, joining these sessions in preparation for the summit are like extra points for you to get the support. There will be a form, so you will just need to fill out your information. And we are very interested. Also, one of the questions through the application will be, what's your main interest to connect with Colombia? We will have 4 main topics. The summit will be focused on those topics, so we can facilitate new programs in specific areas or fields of study. You will also receive that in the application. And this is only for the HBCUs. We also want to offer some scheme of support for the Colombian institutions, but we are not sure yet if it will be in the same way or in a different way, given that in Colombia, institutions work well, they have other opportunities and other challenges too. So for HBCUs, we can offer this support. As I said, you can also receive more information later. However, I also want to mention not only the support from the embassy, but also in previous conversations through our collaboration with our local partners here in Colombia, ICETEX is also open to offer support for institutions interested in traveling to Colombia to attend this summit. So, of course, for us, we cannot offer financial support for everyone. So we cannot offer support for the 40 attendees, only for some of them, but ICETEX is also open to fund some of the representatives traveling. So in that case, the application is a bit different. So that's something I wanted to clarify, that in the case of ICETEX, they would support participants through a program, established program that they already have, that it's called International Visitors. And they can offer support for accommodation and meals, or they can also offer support for airfare. So depending on the need that you have, depending on your needs or your opportunities within your institutions, you can also apply to ICETEX. Thank you, Camilo, for the link. Actually, could you please add the link for the specific program of international visitors, which you can find all the information about the program. However, I would like to mention a difference that we'll have in this financial support. When you apply through the embassy or through the summit to get support to join the summit, you will see a form. It's a simple form, and you will be asked about your interest in Colombia and also about your experience, your previous experience in Colombia. When you want to apply through ICETEX, the process is different. And it's different because in the case of ICETEX, you will have to find a connection in Colombia, a contact in one of the higher education institutions who will submit the application for you, because ICETEX provides, even though they support representatives from HBCUs, they cannot support the institutions abroad. They support the institutions in Colombia. So if you already have a contact in Colombia, if you already have some contacts in higher education institutions, please go ahead and let them know that you want to apply for financial support, because they will have to submit the application on your behalf asking for this support. As I said before, thank you. Thank you, Camilo, for the information, for the link. So as I was saying, if you already have a contact in Colombia, please let them know that you are interested in applying to come to Colombia and join the summit. In that way, they can submit the application. It's also a very simple application. You only need a letter expressing your interest, but also the Colombian institution needs to submit a letter of interest saying why they are interested in bringing you to the summit. So ideally, if you haven't identified a Colombian higher education institution that you would like to work with, please let us know in advance, so as soon as possible, so we can help you connect with some institutions and then help you submit this request for financial support. So thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing. We believe that you will be receiving all this information and the link to apply probably in late March. So you are prepared and ready to join. Camilo, I don't know if you or someone has questions about this.
Okay. I don't know if someone has questions, but I would like to share also some opportunities of funding from ICETEX too, that they launched some days ago, and is connected with the International Experts Program that Diana told us. I'm going to share screen because it's right now open. This program of grants the program of grants has 3 pillars. One is the international experts that would like to support international faculty or international staff from international and foreign universities that would like to advance with initiatives and projects with Colombian institutions. Second one is the Call for Grants 2024. This is a special grant that is going to fund projects between Colombian institutions and between international institutions. So the idea is just the Colombian institution could apply as the coordinator of the consortium, but is required the application has a minimum of one international institution partner. So they have these dates, the same to all economic higher education institutions that are part for each text international experts that are more than 150 institutions in Colombia to promote the development of internationalization and the quality of higher education in the country. So it's going to subside for internationalization projects presented by alliances between Colombian and foreign higher education institutions, and is going to fund also international mobility for students and faculty. The date of closing is May 10, and they are going to have scholarships from $25,000 to $50,000, depending of the size of the consortium, of the number of universities allied from Colombia and from the foreign countries. And the third one is a call for language teaching and protection 2024. There is also for teaching and protection of languages. And the idea is to promote the learning or strengthening the knowledge of a second language. Likewise, seeks to promote the protection and revitalization of native language in Colombia to the accompaniment of specialists on the subject of implementation of international mobility. It's going to fund incoming mobility of specialists in teaching and foreign language or inclusive communication systems like Braille or sign language. So it's going to fund the outgoing mobility of Colombian faculty who are going to learn a foreign language or an inclusive communication system. It's going to fund also incoming mobility of specialists in the protection of and revitalization of a native language. And it's going to fund the outgoing mobility of experts in the protection and revitalization of a native language in Colombia. The closing call date is the July 19, and it's going to fund this kind of activities that it could be identified in the activities that we will have with the leadership of the U.S. Embassy in this 2024. So the idea is you can have this information, and maybe if you have already alliances with Colombian institutions or you are going to apply for this kind of funding, you can initiate the networking and take advantage of the activities of networking that we are going to do with the U.S. Embassy to apply of these kind of activities. In the last years, this call is going to have been launched more or less every year, one time in a year. So the idea is in the future years, in the next years, it's going to be launched also. So this is the information of each text. And I don't know if maybe someone has questions to Diana. Hey.
I think I just want to applaud the embassy. This is great. This is a great opportunity. This is very I guess indicative of how the embassy embraces higher ed, and they don't have to do this. And so to give the HBCUs an opportunity to be on the ground and connect face to face is powerful. And I just want to say thank you to all of those who were involved in making this decision, that it is very important, especially for HBCUs, because we're so under-resourced, to have an opportunity to apply to receive funding to come to Colombia. It is, if you have not been, it is just an experience that is needed and definitely valued on behalf of Tennessee State University. So we look forward to joining the summit and being engaged with everyone. So thank you again to the U.S. Embassy there in Bogota for having the vision and bringing in CCYK to help make this happen. I'm very excited about it.
Thank you, Dr. Wynn. I'm going to share with you also a document, a flyer, a document that resumes and have an abstract of the activities that Diana has told us about the projects of the U.S. Embassy that are funding with the Department of State and are led by the CCYK to all the higher education institutions in Colombia in all the regions. So the idea is we have 2 projects for 2024. They are complementary projects. One is Bridges project, this is the first activity. The introduction of this activity and these projects is this 2 virtual workshops, these 4 HBCUs representative and tomorrow for Colombian representatives. And the idea is to continue with co-creation workshops for Colombian and HBCUs portfolios in international education, maybe to explore what are the strengths and the common interests that we can share, and due to this begin to build this kind of common portfolios in academic and scientific issues. The next activity is a diverse and inclusive meeting in international education with the HBCUs in Colombia in a networking event in NAFSA in 2024 in New Orleans, Louisiana, United States on May. We have already the date that is on May 29 at 5:30 p.m. Close to the venue of the NAFSA convention. As next phase, we are going to have a blended training academy for Colombian and HBCUs for diverse and inclusive study abroad programs. This is going to be from May to August. One of the activities, the first activity is going to be in the face-to-face event parallel to NAFSA that is going to be led by the Dr. Godlove and the Forum on Education Abroad for Colombian and HBCUs representatives that are interested in initiate this kind of training and explorative activities for international education initiatives. The next is going to be in the frame of the summit that Diana told us, in some of the HBCUs Colombia Summit in Cali. We are going to have a panel of student Colombian and United States voices, that is empowerment, resiliency, and leadership in international education. It's going to be led by Colombian and American students that have granted or benefit by the programs of the Department of State and the U.S. Embassy to do international activities between Colombia and United States. And we are going to have the HBCU Summit that Diana told us. And the last activities are going to be also activities funded by the U.S. Embassy, that are the Academic Dialogues Colombia HBCUs in 5 cities in Colombia on October 2024. We are going to fund also some faculty of HBCUs that could come to Colombia and have an immersion program in Colombia in different cities with their faculty partners that could develop this kind of activities for study abroad and different initiatives blended for the future of the relations between Colombia and HBCUs representatives. So we are going to project more or less 60 Colombian and HBCUs institutional representative benefit by all the activities. It's going to be from March to December of 2024, and we are looking to reach this kind of products and results, the awareness and identification of opportunities, analyze networking scenarios for exploration and cultural, academic, and research collaboration opportunities, blended academic and cultural events, portfolios of study abroad programs between HBCUs and Colombian institutions, intercultural training and exchange, capacity building and training activities for diversity and inclusion in international education, and visibility of Colombian higher education system in USA. So this is the funding that is leading with the U.S. Embassy and CCYK. And more information you can write me here in the email to CCYK email anytime you want. We are going to share this kind of invitations of all the activities of each activity to your email. So the invitation is to participate and to help us to share these kind of opportunities with more HBCUs representatives. Giovanni?
Thank you, Camila, for the presentation. I just wanted to say that it's very important to actually have a list of people interested in collaborating in certain collaborations with Colombian universities at any level. We've been talking about research, we've been talking about possible projects, we've been talking about study abroad or the exchange programs at any level. Because CCYK, for instance, has 33 universities. But this project intends to bring the entire system together. So CCYK represents a group of universities, but we're trying to pull the entire Colombian higher education system. So if you have a question or if you have any particular interest coming from a student, coming from a faculty member, please do let us know and we'll do the matching, because that's the spirit of this project. As you have been seeing, or as it was presented by Camilo, we have a lot of activities going on this year so that we can actually get to know each other and see what are the possible topics we can talk about, or what are the different modalities for the mobility of people of our academic communities. So it's very important to actually see how is it we can actually raise certain interest from your academic communities so that we can actually help from the CCYK standpoint in the getting to know each other. So thank you, Camilo, once again for that presentation.
I agree. It's very helpful to see where we are now and what plans there are for the whole year, because that can help us, because our academic calendars are just a little different. And so August is always a time of year that our schools are opening, and it's a very, very busy time. So to have those dates now will help us to navigate any challenges that we have on our campuses with move-in, startup classes, and things like that. So thank you for sharing.
Camilo, sorry, I would like to also say that I also got a question directly regarding the topics I mentioned of the HBCU Summit. So the topics we have, again, these are broad topics, are sustainability, economics and innovation, biodiversity, social justice, including peace studies and conflict resolution, racial studies and ethno-education, social and ethnic diversity, and others. And the fourth topic is ancestral knowledge, including indigenous related topics are in the African diaspora. So these are the general topics. As I said before, you will receive more information or more in detail information later. Thank you.
Are there more questions? It looks like we're right a little bit before the break. So do we want to take the break earlier, or what's the pleasure? I want to just say one thing. I see one of my colleagues on here that's from a community college, and we have not mentioned like the different types of colleges that are involved in this collaboration. So if I may, Fabiola, would you like to just chime in there for a minute?
Dr. Nguyen, you have preempted my chat. I literally just put something in the chat and I heard you mention it, but I just want to say thank you so much to all of you. The information, just the initiative has been extremely rich, forward thinking, and we're excited. To your point, we are a community college, a two-year institution that grants not only certificates, micro-credentials, and associate degrees, who also has the label of being a Hispanic serving institution and a minority serving institution. What you'll find in the US is that there are a lot of similarities as far as demographics served in community college as you'll find in HBCUs. And so for us, with a global agenda that we have at Kansas City, Kansas Community College, it's just for us thinking about what are some of the opportunities for two-year institutions to really be a part of this work and to help build the infrastructure and the types of partnerships that you're looking to build. And so, I'll just give you an example for our college. We're closely working with Peru right now in similar framework of establishing sustainable partnerships. We have international students that range from across the continent, or the globe, right? I said the continent, across the world, at our institution that come to our school for many reasons. One, not only do we have housing, but we also have strong athletic programs to the point where we're having a big initiative looking at sports and internationalization at our college. We're seeing a huge shift in our local demographics to the point where 36% of our students on this campus are Spanish-speaking students. 46% of the people in the county that we live in are Spanish-speaking, right? And so the diversity of where we are situated is so profound in this space. And so for us, we're just looking to be part of the dialogue and the consideration and to see, well, where do we fit in?
And that's a great question. So, Deanna?
Thank you. Thank you very much also for this intervention. I want to say that we're so happy and so proud to have had several colleges joining our initiatives before, including 100,000 Strong. Also, a program that we did with COIL. We had several colleges joining. And also by first time, I would say in this summit, we are also inviting let's say, we don't have the community college name here in Colombia. We don't have the identical same type of institution, but we have some institutions very similar to that, to the community colleges. And we have, by first time, invite them directly to join the summit and also to join our initiatives. We have had several of them participating, but we started with a direct approach, going to them directly, talking to them also as a separate group, talking to them about their needs, their expectations. And actually last week, we hosted a big event here at the embassy with representatives from all over the country. We had instituciones técnicas, tecnológicas y vocacionales, which are similar to the community college type in the US. And they were very interested. They were very happy to be part of this project. And of course, they will be also welcome. So I'm very happy to say that, yes, of course, you are part of this initiative as well. We always take into consideration in our priorities, and also from the Colombian side, we'll have several institutions that you can connect with.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is great. I love it when great minds and great thoughts come together. So, okay, Camilla, do we want to take the break now?
Yes, we're going to return 10:45, maybe earlier, because we are going to initiate with the overview session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
life science. And they have all the contacts in University of Puerto Rico. So that was my first step. Yeah.
First step.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was my first step. And then she suggests Professor Samuel of the University of Puerto Rico. He is the director of one of the laboratories in the agricultural science department. So we contacted him and we proposed this project, and he was really eager to collaborate with us. So yeah, that was a little bit lucky, but they got relationship because the director of the research center, Dr. Natalie Galan, she course her doctoral degree at University of Puerto Rico. So
Okay.
they know each other long time ago. So that made it
It was-
easier, the contact, because it's always hard to find a contact in the United
Okay.
States.
So it was about that relationship, right? It was
Yes,
the relationship. Okay,
the
perfect.
relationship.
Okay, so either Paula or Maria, what about you? How did you take the first steps to connecting?
If you want, I can start with our experience. So basically we have different ways. We are very resourceful here in the institution. So first we try to take advantage of the networks we're in. So for us, for example, CCYK is one of the networks that has helped us to link our projects and our interests or initiatives with different institutions, especially, for example, what we just did with Prairie was a result of a connection that was promoted and was made viable through CCYK. So first step, I think, is to identify the networks we're in, and also to identify which members of those networks we can connect with. And going solo sometimes is not as effective as it is to go with a network and also other allies that can help us to connect. I think always to do it through networks is better. The second thing is that we also try to find in the different events that we are currently active participating in, allies that share our views on certain projects. For example, our main priorities right now are related to especially sustainability, climate change education. So we're also trying to find in this type of networks and events if there are allies that share our vision and that are also actively trying to locate partnerships. And then also the third one, I think this one is very much not as formal, but we try to find through web pages of the different institutions, through LinkedIn. For me, that's a very, very great tool to find partners and allies. Just try to knock doors. I think that is the best way for us to actively engage with our partners. And again, friends of friends. So when you have institutions that have been working with other institutions, to just knock doors through them, I think is something that we have found very beneficial. So yeah.
Thank you. And then lastly, Catherine?
Yes, and an idea of the implementation is for sure is to develop or to continue with the strategy with Campus Bridge, that we have a good and a positive results, and also try to get and what happened with the summer courses with the other university that we can help to implement here for the different students to try to link to the intercultural learning. So we want to work on that different fields for teaching and also for the short-term courses.
Thank you.
Something that I would like to add, if I may, for us, it was very important to have that visit of the 3 professors that Catherine mentioned. It was a real moment for us to connect and to see what were the projects we were working on, and we can collaborate with each other. And for the language center, our main contact was Professor Gonzalo Baptista. He not only allowed us to work with his classes, but also allowed us to connect with other colleagues in the US. And that was a big step for our initiative, which is Campus Reach. So in summary, the local visit was the most important for us.
That's very important. And I think I'm hearing everyone say that those relationships are important. And that's kind of how we started our morning, was talking about developing those relationships. So as we develop those colleagues, how do we sustain those relationships? We know that depending on our political climate or our political landscape in our countries, things could change instantly. So do we have any tools in place or any frameworks that we can reference to help us with sustainability of these projects? What's going to happen if a new president comes or the new president of our country comes? What do we think we can do as higher ed institutions to ensure that these projects last and that they're not just a check off the box and said, oh, I worked with an HBCU, so let me go on to something else. What can you all add to that? Tania?
Thank you. I think a good strategy is signing of a cooperation agreement and then keep the relationship alive through emails, through Zoom calls, and also vetting for new projects. Always like being dynamic with the faculties or with the research centers to look for new opportunities and gather with the key contacts, because it's not always the presidents, but the key contacts. It's bottom-up strategy. So we're going to search for professors or search for faculty members or maybe staff, which are who are really dynamic, to propose them to keep this collaboration alive. I think that's like the main advice.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Those MOUs are very important because it's not a lot of meat in the MOUs, especially for ours. They're very generic in nature to give us some flexibility, but it is the legally binding document. So whoever comes along is like, hey, we have this document here that says we are going to work together. And typically they are 3 to 5 years. So I think that is a great start. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, next.
Well, for us, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Stefania. Just very brief to connect with what Tanya said. In our case, of course, the MOU, the agreement is as it is legally binding, it can help us to formalize the alliance, something that has helped us a lot to guarantee that sustainability and that relationship in the future is to try to connect it first with different academic units. In our case, to make it interdisciplinary, helps us a lot to guarantee the sustainability of these projects, since it works for a greater interest. And second, we also try to connect it with something that for us is institutionally strategic. So in Universidad del Rosario, we have some lines that are strategic for all the different central and academic units. One of them being, for example, sustainability and climate change education, others related, for example, to emotional well-being and emotional health. So we try to connect these projects with those strategic institutional lines that are part of our institutional strategic planning for the next couple of years. So for us, it is something that goes with the institutional vision, goes with the different academic units, and that has been a great way to guarantee the sustainability of this project and to also guarantee that their relationship with these institutions won't be over after just a couple of months or after a couple of years. Even if the project is not successful, for example, in receiving funding, we try to continue to finding more opportunities to work together and to receive funding for these activities. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. And lastly, Catherine?
Okay, so I'll add that for our project Campus Reach, the sessions are remote. So in terms of mobility, if there was, like a change in the government or something like that, it wouldn't like affect us directly. But to add to everything that was said, I think adaptability is key. Like as Maria Alejandra was talking about, like if there is an issue or if we could do something, the idea is to adapt. That way we can continue to collaborate and grow together in our projects.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So this helps us. I hope the HBCUs are taking notes because I often get asked, how do I connect with Colombia? You all have done so much in Colombia. How do I connect? And I'm like, well, I don't want to tell all of my secrets. So this is a good opportunity for you all to promote your institutions and share with us how to get this done. So we appreciate you so much. Are there any questions from the audience? Because I have lots of questions and I don't want to dominate before we transition to the next panel. Are there any questions from our participants before we move on? No, it doesn't look like we have any. Well, colleagues, thank you so much for sharing. And I hope to meet all of you all in August at the summit. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
so-
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we will transition quickly. We are running, it's going quicker than I anticipated, but as we prepare for this last session of the morning, I am very honored to be able to present to you first Dr. Antonio. He is the Vice President of Science, Technology, and Innovation at the University of EAFIT in Medellin. And we have had great relationships with them, so I'm very honored to introduce him. Let me see, is he already on? Yeah, there he is. Okay. We'll start with you and then I'll introduce each one as we're finished.
Yes, good morning, Dr. Wynn. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks so much. Glad to be here.
So I have questions for the panelists, but I wanted to make sure you didn't have anything else you wanted to say or just the introduction. Are you good?
No, I mean, I think you said everything. Yeah, I'm based here out of the city of Medellin. EAFIT University is one of the largest private institutions we have here in the region, and we're very much interested in fostering collaborations with partners across the country and internationally, and in particular, this opportunity to get to speak with HBCUs, in particular in the US, is something that we very much welcome. So very much looking forward to the participation in the panel.
All right, thank you. And then we have Dr. Beatriz Guerrero. She's a director of the Center for Research and Studies on Gender, Women, and Society at the University of Del Valle in Cali.
Hola, sí, correcto. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, that's correct. I am a professor at Universidad del Valle, and I have a PhD in education, and I have been working with racial inequalities in education. So, but because of my work in intersectionality, I am now directing the Center for Gender, Women, and Society Studies of the university, which was the first gender research center in Colombia 30 years ago.
Awesome, thank you. We also have Professor Steve Castillo from he's from the University of Antioquia in Medellin.
Hi, everyone. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, nice. I hope everyone's fine. My name is Steve. I'm a professor from the University of Antioquia for the past 7 years. Right now, I'm leading the construction of the inclusive higher education of the university. And I will be pointing various topics about inclusive higher education based on the experience that we have as the second main largest public institution in Colombia. And we are very glad to be here sharing with you this morning. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. And then lastly, we have Dr. Rafael Mendez, the Dean of the School of Engineering, Science, and Technology in Bogota.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for us to be here as Dean of the School of Engineering, Science, and Technology, and representing also the whole university, Universidad del Rosario. It's very important to us to discuss how inclusion, diversity, and equity is extremely important to universities, especially in Colombia. Rosario, as you might, is one of the oldest universities in Colombia, almost 400 years, but very open to innovation. And when we talk about innovation, we have to talk about diversity, we have to talk about inclusion. So it's very important the dialogue we will have here to share and to create new relationships between Universidad del cities in the States. We're very open to see how it goes. Thank you very much for the invitation.
All right, perfect. So speaking of diversity, equity, and inclusion, our HBCUs are also very diverse. Even though they are historically Black colleges and universities, they still have a lot of diversity within those institutions, just like your institutions there in Colombia. We have private institutions, we have public institutions, we have faith-based institutions, we have large institutions, we have small institutions. So again, there's a lot of diversity, but as we have heard from, well, all morning, that there's always a way for us to collaborate. And so as you think about your particular institution, how can we ensure that our collaborations are mutually beneficial, addressing the needs and strengths of both institutions, regardless of how diverse or different that they are? And let's start with Dr. Raphael.
Well, thank you very much. I was wondering at the beginning, you were talking about the MOUs, which is very important, but in order to have a really nice MOU, we have to identify the interests between both universities. So one of the very first things in order to be kind of like okay with the sustainability of the action is to identify first the interests between both institutions. So regarding, for example, academic portfolio or even research, is very important to identify which are the targets of both institutions. If we focus on those targets, the initiative will last longer. The other thing, which I believe is very important, is when we have the relationship, it will be very, very important to create and to participate into new networks of collaboration. So the MOU is important, but more important than that is the connection between persons, between professors, between faculty, between students. So we have to intersect those interests crystallized in people, you know, like faculty and students, in order to make it longer and not a dependent thing in the MOUs. So one of the strategies I propose we can have is to have like some meetings before composing the MOU in order to identify the interests between both universities, so we can have this initiative for longer.
Great, thank you so much. Steve, you have anything to add to that?
In my case, I'm on the same line that Dr. Rafael just point. I think the memorandum of understanding isn't enough if it isn't based on real practices among the academical communities in the two institutions. So I think that if we want to have or shrink the content of the memorandum of understandings, we have to first of all develop one infrastructure of practices between or among the two communities that are based in both institutions. That's all I want to add.
Okay, thank you. So, what challenges and opportunities do you see in facilitating
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. What challenges and opportunities do you see in facilitating student and faculty exchange programs? So let's talk challenges first and then opportunities. And let's start with you, Beatrice.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add to the previous question something about the mutual benefits. And I see lots of benefits of interchange and connection between the two countries. First of all, I think that what you have in the US as HBCUs reflects on a curriculum model that organizes content, instruction, wellness, and like all university life around racial equity, ethnic equity, any type of equity that addresses populations that have been oppressed in the history. So we don't have that in Colombia. We don't have a Black university in Colombia. We have walked some paths towards increasing equity for Black, what we call here NARC population, which is Black, Afro-Colombian, Raizal population from the Colombian Caribbean, and Palenquero, which is in the Atlantic coast. So we don't have an HBCU here. What we have is some sort of like what you may see as affirmative action with like quotes. So some public universities in Colombia have this average for when they enter to study a career in public universities. They must guarantee like 4%, 2% of the students that are accepted are Black Colombians or indigenous populations. So we have that, and at Universidad del Valle, we have the highest average of affirmative action in the country. We have 8% for Black Colombians. We have 8% for indigenous populations. And we are right now working on an average for population victims of the armed conflict and people with disabilities. So even like, so that we have that at Universidad del Valle, and we have the quotes system for affirmative action, but we don't have something like a Black university. That's why I think the mutual benefits for Colombia will be to understand that affirmative action may have many different forms, and the quotes is just one, but there are others. And the understanding that having affirmative action in different ways doesn't threaten the racial group in power. And the benefits for the US is that I would say the richness of the culture that permeates higher education, teaching, instruction here in Colombia. Because, well, I lived in the US, I studied my PhD there. And the structure, which is good and is very, organized and clear for content, for the courses, but I think that here what we have is a more flexible curriculum that moves with society's movement. and the teaching part of that is also different. So I think that the mutual benefit will be in regards to how the universities, both here and in the US, can understand or move forward in taking advantage of. In the US, like, to know Colombia is to know other ways to be Black in the world, because we don't have the same system for defining who is or is not Black. And for the US, for Colombia, will be to understand other ways of affirmative action.
Okay, well, the US Supreme Court just overturned affirmative action in the United States, so we don't even have that anymore, but that's another conversation for a different day. So I want to go to Antonio for this question, and then everyone can chime in. How can we create an inclusive and supportive environment for students and faculty when they come to Columbia? And then we'll ask the HBCU panel tomorrow the same question. So how are you all focusing on creating a welcoming, inclusive, supportive environment for African American students that will come to your campuses there in Columbia?
Thank you very much for that question, which is very interesting and challenging at the same time, because I mean, I can tell you, from my own experience, even though I'm Colombian, I did a significant part of my studies and work as a researcher in the US, and there's quite a contrast. There's quite a cultural contrast between the two countries when it comes to university culture. I would say the starting point always has to start with awareness, right? Just getting to know each other better. There's a lot of blind spots that you can see when it comes to diversity and inclusion. I mean, for example, I have to admit, the university that I work for has traditionally been a university that's been mostly geared towards the upper echelons of society. In Medellin has had a largely homogeneous student population, largely from the local region. When I came to the university, I found out that I was the first ever the first ever Black person in a leadership position at the university. And so you can see a lot of the blind spots. At the same time, I can say, there's a lot of good intentions. There's a lot of curiosity in getting to foster exchanges with many different kinds of foreign universities. And even though we don't have a long track record of exchange with HBCUs, we're very much open to that possibility. So we're very much a welcoming environment. I'm always very impressed at the beginning of each semester how many international students we get to receive every year. That population, it could be more diverse. We get a lot of students from France, for example, from Germany. Not as many from the US, I would have to say. I'm pretty surprised by that we actually get to receive more students from Europe than we do from the US as a whole. But we're very much open to it, and I think there's a lot of openness and curiosity in getting to foster greater exchanges. From my point of view, from my role at the university as Vice President for Science, Technology and Innovation, for example, we love to get to see more of our exchange students, more of the foreign students who get to come here to participate more, for example, in research projects, which they don't usually get to do as much because they usually, taking, some load of classes and stuff. But, Columbia provides some incredibly interesting subjects and for research projects, and of course foreign students always bring a fresh perspectives on what could be done in those projects. So that's what I would say for now regarding that subject.
Okay, Raphael.
Yeah, well, regarding the original question about the challenges and the opportunities linked to what Dr. Antonio just said, I believe some of the challenges are also themselves opportunities. So for example, like sometimes the language could be a challenge, but also an opportunity in order to guarantee the mobilization of faculty and students in both ways. In order to receive, for example, the students from the US, I believe it's very important to have like a mentoring group of people receiving these others that are coming. We usually do that with internationals. So there is like a community of mentors, sometimes as students, when they receive students, they provide kind of like are close to the students, the international students, to make them feel home. This is very important because sometimes the cultural kind of like shock could happen. But as Antonio said, also the kind of like the reality and some needs and issues in Colombia could be very interested in terms of research for people and researchers in America. One of the other thing I also want to focus is that for us in Universidad del Rosario, it's so important to recognize the person behind the student or the researcher. So in order to promote this diversity and inclusion, we also promote some, let's say, spaces of encounter. So they really live and they really are close to the cultural style we have here in the university. So the idea is to receive and let them know they also, when they come, are part of the whole university, and they can use and they can use all the facilities and the tools we have in order to have a better experience.
Steve, at your institution, is it structured in any way? Is there something specific that students from the US can expect to see or hear or read when they come to your institution to make them feel that they are or that they belong?
Yes, of course. I would like to, first of all, add something to the last question that you made. Because University of Antioquia completes 4 decades contextualizing its perspective, approaching inclusive higher education. I'm gonna summarize this approach in 4 points. First of all, University of Antioquia had to overcome the logic that attributed in a causal and unidirectional manner the achievement of a just, inclusive, and equitable society to higher education based on the understanding of the relationship between the university and its environment from a perspective that focuses on analyzing the university based on the characteristics of social context and in which it's inserted, and its ability to guarantee contextualized education, as well as analyzing the problematic social situation of the context based on the university's capacities to address its specificities. Second of all, overcoming the special needs education paradigm that exacerbated educational segregation by placing the burden of inclusion on the historically excluded individual or group, aiming for their functional integration. This paradigm, as all we know, did not understand diversity as inherent characteristic of human beings and all forms of life, nor did it question the structural inequalities that sustain dehumanization, and epistemic violence in higher education and society. Actually, the University of Antioquia had to adopt a different paradigm that problematizes attitudinal, situational, contextual, and many other deep-seated barriers that deepen patterns of accumulated historical disadvantage that restrict, limit, or prevent the full enjoyment of higher education as a human and fundamental right under condition of equity and equality for all individuals. Actually, in these 4 decades approaching inclusive higher education in the University of Antioquia, we had to expand the scope to address the presence of indigenous, Afro-descendant people, Romani people, deaf communities, peasants, women, LGBTQIA plus communities, immigrants, victims of armed conflict, peace signatories, among others, in the university community with a differential, intersectional, and dialogical perspective. In these 40 years, we had many good practices that I would like to point in order to answer that last question that you made. We have, for example, support for ethnic groups in the university that is an initiative of retentions, aims to support the training processes of Afro-descendant, racial, and indigenous students in University of Antioquia based on a population differential perspective and approaches and adaptation that favor their involvement in university life and the consolidation of their academic trajectory and projection. We actually have diversity in the curriculum. Semester by semester, we offer courses on Afro-diasporic and racial thought and knowledge, co-created with collective in the university like Cade Afro, or Afrodea, or the Roots Project. We've been offering these courses to all the academical community of the university since 2017. We have Africa at the University, that is institutional cultural programming created in collaboration and consultation with Afro-descendant collective in the University of Antioquia, focusing on the commemoration of the abolition of slavery in Colombia and reflection on the differences and identities of Afro-descendant communities in our country. We are celebrating the 6th year of our program of African Studies that is settled in the Faculty of Education of the University of Antioquia. We are looking forward to establish our Center for Study of Africanities or Afro-diasporic knowledge in order to show the efforts, the contributions of Black, Afro-Colombian, racial, Palenquero communities to the academia. And the most recent achievement of social mobilization of Afro-descendant people in the university is the physical space for the students' office of Afro-descendant students in the university. I mean, the magnitude of the challenge remains greater than the progress, but I think this is important to mention in order to see what is the next steps that we must take in order to have a just, equitable, inclusive higher education in our country, in that dialogue with HBCUs and your experience in that context.
Thank you. Beatrice, do you have anything to add to that? Like, what are you all doing to show more of an inclusive and supportive environment? Is that considered a challenge or opportunity for you?
It's an opportunity at Universidad del Valle, well, in Cali, where Univalle is located, we have the highest Black population in the country. And at Universidad del Valle, we have starting to, well, not studying, we have some advances, but we are putting on the table discussion on equality. We have just a new administration, and they are very interested in articulating a whole like inclusion policy, because we have a policy for gender, we have for gender inclusion, we have a policy for race and ethnic minorities, we have a policy for disability, we have a policy for how do you say, like good relationships in the institution. So the new administration is trying to gather all those together to have a more like intersectional view of inclusion. And what we have is the average of affirmative action for like the Black and Indigenous students quotes. We have different courses, and we have this research group on race, ethnicity, and discrimination that is very known, and it's composed by different professors who have discussed and addressed racial issues in Colombia. But also, I would say that the city itself is because of the presence of Black people, is committed to different activities beyond the university. And we have this festival of Black Colombian music in the Pacific Coast, which is like huge. It happens in August, and so many like international people come to that festival. So I would say that the variety of the city and the interest of the city in welcoming people from other geographies is what also guarantees inclusion.
Okay, perfect. Antonio, did you need to add anything to that before we move on to the next question? Okay.
No, not particularly. We can move on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So if you all would share individually some of the strategies for measuring success of these relationships or these collaborations or these initiatives and partnerships, how do you all measure success of these? Antonio, you can start.
Well, that's a tough question for sure. Because yeah, I mean, we tend, as you all know, in academia, we tend to have some very traditional metrics, right? You know, when it comes to the teaching side, of course, we always talk about numbers of students and financial metrics. And when it comes to research, you know, we have some traditional metrics related to for example, you know, number of publications, when we tend to price, you know, volume over quality usually, instead of impact. So I would say, you know, definitely a challenge that we face, but it's a challenge that we're very much interested in tackling head on, is, you know, how do we get to measure ourselves more in terms of actual impact instead of metrics like, again, like money and numbers of students or publications and the like. We, you know, for example, you know, just to draw from an example from one of the things that we do in our office is, you know, we're in charge of the entire intellectual property portfolio of the university, and we look forward to creating, you know, technologies, products, services that ultimately could be, commercialized through startups and could offer some value to society. And we want to move from measuring our impact in terms of, for example, number of patents, towards in general getting to measure, how many people are we having a positive impact in their lives, through technologies, products, services that we develop in our universities. We know that a lot of these are not designed to just cater to a local market. Of course, we would like to go to other parts of the country, to other parts of the world, and we very much love to get to work with partner institutions across the world in order to get to find some more impactful outcome for technologies and research products that we develop here. That's one of, again, it's probably not as specific as we would like it to be at this point, but again, it's very much a challenge that we're aware of and that we're working on.
Okay, thank you. Raphael, do you have a way or some thoughts on how to assess the success of an initiative between the two institutions?
Well, it's as Antonio says, very, very hard to do it, especially because this is a type of innovation, and the way we measure innovation has to have more time in order to measure somehow the impact. But as we will start creating these new collaborations, I think one of the most important thing is to, for example, in terms of research, not only focus on the number of papers and citations after having it, but also building the collaboration based on collaborative interest. I mean, for example, you guys could have a specific interest and we can also have one. And if we intersect if we intersect both, the project for sure will have a better impact. So I think one of the variables we can have in mind in order to measure that the collaboration is better is to guarantee that the collaboration happen intersecting both interests. Also, for example, Universidad del Rosario doesn't only focus on teaching and research, but also with the connection of communities in regions different than the capital. So we have this kind of like third mission of the institution regarding the needs of the society, kind of like far away from the facility somehow. So maybe I remember I had this conversation with the vice president someday. He was the previous dean of the School of Medicine, and I asked him, "How do you measure a paper is successful?" I was expecting him to say, no, by the number of citations or something like that. He said, by the numbers of lives we save. So I think in terms of that, we can measure this impact regarding the needs we both have, and that's a very more important metric we can add.
Awesome. So before Beatrice and Steve chime in, let me share with you one of the things that we do at Tennessee State University to determine success of an initiative. We do a pre and post assessment for our students because we're looking for intercultural competency development, right? So we want our students to become more culturally competent as they visit different cultures. And one way that we do that is that we test them before they go on the experience, and then we test them when they return. And we look at the differences of those assessments, and we draw some conclusions, and we also develop some themes around all of the different students that we assess. And we do it by region. So it would be the students that go to Colombia, and then with the students and so that also helps us to determine maybe we don't need to go back there, because if all of the students have had not so good of an experience, or if their intercultural skills have not been enhanced, then it's something, there's a gap that exists there, and we need to figure out a way to effectively address those gaps. So that's just an example of ways that we can assess the success of a collaborative relationship with another institution. Because again, but I'm speaking from that student voice, this is what the students say that they need or they don't need. And we try to build our programs around the needs of the student, and develop research projects around that, and kind of take off our scholarly hat for just a moment and focus on the needs of the student. Beatrice and Steve, what do you think?
I would add to what you just said, like students' evaluation is a very important data. It's very important data for understanding how the process is going. But I also say that to understand evaluation as an ongoing process, to address not only like students' voices or professors' voices, which matter, but also the end goal of the interchange, like for society, for like informal interaction between the students, because they may not have a certain academic program, but they like the friends they make within the student in the incoming institution. And so I would say that a broader evaluation of the entire process, materials used, the teaching, the students, the professors, the institutions, the hosting process, like the welcoming, how well they may feel in the space. So I would say that it's ongoing, and it must include all the bigger picture of the end goal of the interaction.
Absolutely. We must assess the learning objectives and find out if those objectives were met. So thank you for sharing that, Beatrice. Steve.
Actually, Dr. Wynn, we have a similar way of measuring the impact of collaborations among institutions. We have an experience applying a values survey that would like to point how the cultural exchange between two communities affects each other. So, for example, in a variable like the perception or the awareness of structural violence in academic context, this survey had provided a lot of data of how our academical processes in the university relation or based in diversity make a change of the way of viewing things in the students. I think this is a useful manner or way to measuring the impact between collaboration, because we expect that when we are collaborating with another institution or with another community, we have a transformative experience for both. So I think the value survey before and after that transformative experience will highlight how much the experience means the objective that the experience had in the first intention. So that's I would like to add to that question.
Okay, thank you. So we are quickly approaching the end of it, but I had one final question I wanted to ask you all. We talked about the challenges briefly and the opportunities, but can you think of a few barriers that we all need to consider as we are developing these relationships? What barriers do you see on your end in Colombia relative to making these partnerships work?
Well,
Rafael.
thank you very much. You know, these days in Colombia, we are crossing through an economic uncertainty. So funding, which is not the most important thing, is important in order to move the faculty and the students. So we have to find different ways of making that happen. Probably thinking about matching funds or even international ones in order to have it. Also, we can have anticipative somehow collaboration using virtual environments that could happen also. But in order to face the cultural experience, the fact that, I mean, visiting the universities in both ways are also at some point very important. So I think that the funding could be a barrier, but if we work with enough anticipation, I guess we can face that.
Okay, thank you. Antonio, any other barrier you can think of?
Yeah, I guess one that I have to say is one of those cultural differences that I've seen between Colombia and the US is probably Colombian institutions tend to prioritize formality a lot more than US institutions tend to do. So, for example, you know, if we want to just experiment and do a pilot and, you know, just try something to begin with, you know, the Colombian institution would usually try to want to sign an MOU or some sort of formal instrument before we can get to do something, you know, anything at all. In that sense, you know, we definitely are in need of you know, just having a more practical approach. I think we have to be a little bit more fearless in terms of be more willing to experiment without the need for some, you know, formal instrument being on the way of that. That's one of the things that we've been trying to do here from EAFIT. I mean, generally speaking, we try to be a university with a high degree of practical sense, but sometimes, you know, legalities and formalities tend to get more on the way than they should.
I totally understand, but it's like that in the US too. Everybody wants an MOU before we even have a conversation. And I'm like, we need to have a conversation first to see if we even need an MOU. So
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. That is a great barrier that we all need to keep in mind as we are
Absolutely.
going back to our institution's administration for support. Stephen Beatrice, do you have anything further to add about a barrier?
Besides what Antonio and Rafael have said, I would like to add the academic, which might be included in what Antonio said, but it's more detailed. The academic differences, and with this, I refer to the grading system. Here for universities, we work from 0.0 to 5.0, not to 4.0, and we don't grade usually with the A+, A minus, B. So, but with numbers. So that's something that, like, in the everyday dynamics of interaction with the students must be addressed and overcome for their transcripts and stuff. And this is just a small example of what might happen in the classroom, besides the cultural bumps and the economic situation. I would say that the barrier will entail us to, like, us all, like the incoming students and the welcoming institution, to have a more open view of the interchange, the end goals, why we are there, to be able to connect instead of just addressing, like, for instance, a course here at my institution on ethnicity and race in Colombia, but being able to connect that with differences and race in the US. So I will say that the willing to perform a real interchange that impacts both spaces, not only one institution.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad you brought up the transcripts, because when we first started our relationships in Colombia, they weren't credit-based. They were more intercultural types of exchanges. And then when we started looking at ways for the students to gain credit for that, there was some challenges with trying to transfer the credit from an institution. Then we started getting into accreditation and all of the requirements. So those are definitely, they can be barriers, but those barriers can be overcome. So we were able to finally overcome that by making sure that the transcripts could be evaluated in a timely manner so that the student wouldn't miss anything on their curriculum map relative to getting those credits they need for graduation. So that was a great point, Beatrice. Thank you. And then lastly, Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I think one of the main barriers that we must face in this context is institutional racism, because I think it's a big barrier that doesn't let the institution to see the importance of collaborating with HBCUs and their experience in higher education. This topic can remain invisible in the high diversity of our context, and the will to prioritize another kind of spectrum of that diversity, like people with disabilities, indigenous people, but all the things that has to be with Afro-Colombian people and their academic trajectories and projection remain invisible to this international affairs office of the university because of racism in most of the cases. So I would like to point that barrier among all the others that my colleagues point before me.
Well, I am so glad that you brought that up. And that would be a totally different webinar that we need to have, that we can just focus on that. But we're out of time for today, and we will definitely capture that as hopefully part of the conversation or the dialogue that will continue when we go to Cali. Because for me, as an African-American female, I definitely want that to be on the agenda as we have those conversations, because we cannot not talk about it. So thank you so much for that. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for sharing, for being here today, for being present, for being in the moment of a very important dialogue as we continue to figure out ways to bring these institutions together. You can see that the United States sees that it is important. Our embassy, our State Department, all of the key stakeholders are, I think, vested in this. And we just need to come together and make this thing happen. So thank you for your time today. I thank you for the HBCUs that showed up. We're looking forward to tomorrow as we have the Colombian institutions do the same thing that our HBCUs said today. So I will turn it over to Rosalind for closing remarks, and I wish you all a great rest of your marvelous Monday.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen, and thank you to everyone that participated today. We are extremely fortunate to have this opportunity to brainstorm and share best practices and think about ways to build on the work that we've already done. We're really looking forward to the activities for the rest of the year, and we hope that we motivated some of your institutions to join us in Cali in August. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.